Hello everyone. A big thank you to all who have subscribed to the channel. I will never take your support for granted. For anyone watching this and has not yet subscribed, please I ask you to subscribe. It is free, and you will be helping me to build the channel. Thank you. Today we are in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwanda wants some natural resources from Congo. Uganda wants gold from Congo. The Western world wants plenty from Congo. The Democratic Republic of Congo is sadly unable to protect itself. It is such a sad situation to say the least. It feels like the Democratic Republic of Congo has no leader or president. Different armies are taking control of different regions of Congo. The M23, which is effectively Rwanda's fringe army, are in Congo in full strength. You got to feel great sympathy for the ordinary citizen, the DRC. Their president cannot protect them. How unfortunate is then? The intense violence in this part of the eastern DRC has generally been attributed to the Allied Democratic Forces, a Ugandan-origin rebel group that pledged allegiance to the Islamic State in 2019. As with previous massacres, none of the nearby military forces, including the Congolese army, invited Ugandan military or the UN peacekeeping troops, intervened to stop the killing. This inaction reflects a broader politics of agony that has turned eastern DCR into a graveyard for thousands of civilians. As its roots is the failure of the mantra of good intentions professed by a divided and distracted international community. So where did it all go wrong? Let us take a listen to this clip, please.
The meeting between President Felix Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Paul Kagame from Rwanda is raising little hope among the population, mainly people here living in the IDP camp across the province of North Kivu here. The DRC for right now is hosting almost 7 million of people, and 4 million of them are around this town of Goma here. This is why, questioning them here, people are saying they have seen such kind of meeting many times between DRC officials without any result, and fighting still going on the ground. Even right now as we are talking here, the army is facing the M23 rebels on the ground for more than 12 days without stop. And it has even pushed more people, those who have tried even to go back in their village, they were pushed out again during the week. This is why people in the camp here are saying that the only things for them is to go back home. But they are really questioning how this will be possible, while the DRC officials still not showing the will to discuss with the M23 rebels.
The real solution in all of this is to ask President Kagame of Rwanda to remove his soldiers from DRC in order to stop our suffering. But we know it's still impossible. Even with these talks, we are hopeless and tired of all of this.
They need to be honest and talk seriously on the ongoing issues in the region, because since 3 years now that we are here suffering.
We have discussed with the M23 rebels officials this morning again, and they were very clear that the ongoing process in Angola, which they are saluting, is not concerning their movement, because the only possibility for them to discuss with the DRC officials is in a direct dialogue under the Eastern Africa Community members, but this possibility was also rejected by the DRC officials. This is why the hope of many people here, and even in the province of North Kivu here, to expect a lot from this ongoing process. Even this meeting between Paul Kagame and Felix Tshisekedi is very little in terms of result. Allen Waikani.
For the better part of the last 3 decades, the DRC has topped international counts of conflict-induced internal displacement, currently peaking at nearly 7 million, according to the International Organization for Migration. Meanwhile, human rights violations by both armed groups and government forces have cascaded. More often than not, concomitant cycles of violence and displacement have gone unnoticed. It was only with the resurgence of March 23rd movement, 23, nearly 3 years ago, that the conflict attracted renewed international attention. While the ensuing fighting contributed to burgeoning displacement figures, the exclusive political and media framing focusing in M23 has ignored the proliferation of armed groups causing mayhem in the region. The government has used nationalist rhetoric to rally various militias to join the war effort against M23. This policy has empowered armed groups and produced an even more complicated security landscape. Meanwhile, international donors have continued to pump millions into the conflict resolution, including an expensive, aging UN peacekeeping mission, vastly humanitarian funds, and costly peacebuilding projects to stem root causes. Largely missing, in what on paper looks like dedicated engagement, are an in-depth understanding of political realities, constructive strategy, and innovative diplomacy at key levels of international decision-making. Responses to the crisis in DRC are often informed by simplistic readings of the causes of war. Pundits and influencers, including on social media, rehash tired colonial tropes about natural resources and ethnic hatred. Few commentators embrace the full, political nature of a crisis with various drivers and complex logic. Western donors, nowadays called international partners, largely continue to apply technocratic templates to political problems. Anti-corruption rhetoric, regulations of illicit trade, and calls for social cohesion feature in glossy strategies and press releases, but concrete action to tackle those scourges is often either superficial or absent from policy. International responses remain largely inconsistent in the specific context of the current escalation. There is little pressure to discourage the Congolese army's active collaboration with armed groups. Networks of grand corruption are rarely prosecuted and result in bizarre on- and off sanctions sensitive to political shifts in the relations between DRC and key Western powers, such as the European Union or the United States. Responses to the military involvement of neighboring countries are equally inconsistent. Western denouncement of Rwandan support of M23 does not stop the same governments from pushing for military aid to Rwanda in the context of the Mozambican crisis. Massive Burundian support to DRC received close to no international attention, even though it has further complicated the security landscape and led to a near-proxy war situation between Burundi and Rwanda, heightening risks of further regional escalation. This randomness and arbitrariness of a Western-leaning international community has not gone unnoticed by the Congolese and their neighbors. As in similar conflicts, responses in the DRC showcase that classic international conflict resolution seems to have reached its limits and is losing much of its credibility, heralding the end of international peacebuilding and liberal interventionism in its current shape. Contemporary conflict zones see new approaches and new actors scrambling for their place at the table. This partly attributed to changing global power structures. 3 decades of violence in the eastern DRC have ticked all the boxes in the bucket list of Western intervention and state building. The DRC had its first democratic elections in 2006. It underwent a peaceful political transition. The International Monetary Fund re-engaged with the country, and regional bodies are now taking over the peacekeeping baton. Yet, amid wider geopolitical entanglements, non-Western forms of colonialism seek to replace the Western template, and private military companies gain ground. DRC and its rivals have turned to new and not-so-new partners in the business, defense, and diplomacy. These partners are as ambiguous and interest-driven as Western powers, but without signposting human rights conditionalities and pro-democracy slogans. Overall, the playing field of influence may not be as clear-cut as in Mali or the Central African Republic, where Russia, a new colonial actor, provoked a hard reset, kicking out France. Still, the fading of the Western influence in the Great Lakes region comes with similar patterns as new actors leverage the long-standing condescendence of Western powers. In shifting global power system, these actors see their chance to get a foot on the door, banking on campaigns of disinformation and polarization. In this changing and increasingly fragmented international environment, the hypocrisy of the old and new interveners is also somewhat mirrored by self-interested Congolese elites. These elites increasingly resort to outsourcing and subcontracting national security to armed groups, private military companies, and neighboring states. Such a hybrid context shows how security provision is no longer framed by international standards echoed by the UN that has not been able to achieve its global ambition, leading to a fragmentation and privatization of security governance. In the case of the crisis in eastern DRC, these global and regional shifts will only add to complex web of alliances and antagonisms that have already guided conflict drivers, interests, and responses for decades. These are tectonic shifts whether seen through geopolitical, realpolitik, or post-colonial lenses. Their humanitarian effect worsens the already entrenched patterns of suffering and displacement of civilians, while the resulting fog of war conceals concerning developments of the broader international politics of security or insecurity. A sober and honest reckoning with these changing realities is direly necessary, in particular for those representing the slowly fading system of Western liberal interventionism and conflict resolutions. How about if all foreign armies left the DRC? Rwanda, Uganda, M23, and all the armies used by the Western and European should return back to their countries and leave Congo alone. Please let us hear your take on this issue. Please comment and let us share your thoughts. Thank you so much for your time. Deep appreciation to you all. Catch you in the next one.